Welcome to Organizational Sherlocks, the podcast where business meets psychology and your organizational puzzles meet their match.
Join us for captivating stories and practical solutions to unravel your toughest challenges.
I'm Dr. Elizabeth Fleming.
And I'm Morgan Ashworth, your guides to a prescription for business success.
Let's dive in. Well, hey, listeners, we want to start with a bit of a story today, which is imagine skiing at full speed through snow. Your heart is pounding at 180 beats per minute. Your legs are burning, and then you stop. You lie down, you pick up a rifle, and you must hit a target the size of a golf ball 50 meters away. Welcome to the biathlon. Why do you think we're talking about this today, Morgan?
I mean, it might be the most accurate metaphor for leadership I know.
Yeah, say more about that.
Well, with the Olympics going on right now, we thought it would be nice to have that Olympic theme to what we're doing. But I'm sure so many leaders out there, you have had a situation where you were moving 100 miles an hour, or it felt like you were, through meetings, through all sorts of, hard conversations, easy conversations, just you're moving. You have so many different tasks to get going on and to get done. But at the same time, you have to stop within each task and ensure you have clear precision within each task at the same time. So not only were you moving 100 miles an hour, your mind, but you also had to let your mind stop and think and pause and really get down into the nitty-gritty in some of those tasks.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will say I know maybe a little silly way to start the episode today, but I do think it is a perfect example of leadership because there are those moments where you're putting out fires or you're, manufacturing, like we need to get that new product out there. We need to get marketing out, whatever it might be. But there's moments where you do need to take a breath, right? You need to stop. You need to center yourself in order to kind of just have the best performance, I guess, as a leader, but also to empower your employees to do the same.
I agree with that. I was actually thinking in relation to the biathlon, which thank you to our IO behind the scenes for the idea of biathlon as our metaphor today. I was thinking about, you go into a hard conversation and when you're stressed, you naturally have a physical reaction to it. So your heart is actually beating at a higher rate. You naturally are you're having this hard conversation with an employee, whether that be disciplinary, corrective, termination, whatnot, whatever it might be. And then you have to leave that conversation and immediately calm down because you don't want to have an effect on the greater environment, right? So that's just one example. I also think of just today, I'm thinking a million miles an hour. I have a lot of projects going on. I have a trip coming up. And so I want to make sure all of my I's are dotted and my T's are crossed. And I don't want to cross my I's by accident. I don't want to dot my T's by accident, right? So I'm thinking a million miles an hour. I'm walking between tasks. I'm also thinking of other tasks while I'm walking. So, I'm context switching consistently.
Right.
Previous podcast we talked about. And I actually had an employee stop me and go, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." I was just thinking. So I had what people tend to call RBF, resting B face. But I was really just thinking. I was fine. I was happy. But my moving a million miles an hour was actually having an effect on this person where she thought I might not be okay when I was. I was just thinking about something. I was in focus mode. I was in precision mode, but moving at 100 miles an hour at the same time.
Yeah, I was thinking context switching as well when we had that conversation on one of our previous episodes, and that was exactly what was going through my mind. So we must be on a similar page. But but I agree. I mean, to your point, I think there are moments, even again in my own life, where I'm thinking about things. I'm kind of just moving. And so I think it takes a lot of intention to realize like what mode am I in right now, just like they have to do in the biathlon, right? I mean, they have to know I have to calm my heart rate in order to take this shot, right? And to be effective. And so it's that ability to move or transition between the two that I think is really where the skill lies. I think just even using myself as an example, I'm pretty effective at being in focus mode and getting things done and, dealing with things when they're on fire. I'm also pretty good at strategy and kind of sitting down and calm. but it's that transition when you go from one to the other very quickly that you really have to work and practice as a leader.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not just context switching in the sense of like you're changing your thoughts from this
right,
task to this task. You are mentally and physically also context switching with that
exactly.
because your way of work is different. The process by which you work is different. It's not just tasks. I'm not switching from this marketing project to this marketing project, which is all fully proactive. No, I'm switching from 100 miles an hour HR situation to a sales
Right.
meeting, for
Yeah.
example.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like if I'm going in with, endurance, right? And I'm just on fire and we're trying to do our strategic plan, like that's not probably going to be very effective. And so I think it's, again, goes back to some of that intentionality and making sure and taking the time and being really honest. If you're not in that place too, as a leader, if it's not the time to be able to kind of, hit it hard and all of like to be in that endurance state, being honest about that. I need a little bit of time, right? Just asking for those moments. I think most people around you will realize that if your brain space is not there, that there can be a little bit of flexibility. So I don't know. I'm all about that. I like to give people the room to kind of be who they are in the moment. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say not every leader has that opportunity to, take those 5 minutes to go grab a coffee, use the bathroom to help them context switch. Sometimes it needs to happen immediately because it could be through between two urgent tasks even or you might have a deadline coming up and so you really have to go as quick as possible.
mhm.
I would say, like, this is the 40-hour work week. You see a lot of executives and leaders naturally working more than 40 hours, I'd argue, because of that passion involved with whatever they're doing. But they're still managing that balance. Um, so Elizabeth, what do you think of, splitting our episode into segments to keep discussing
Sure.
this continuous metaphor of the biathlon and our ability to switch between our heart rate's at 180 beats per minute to being able to be as accurate as a sharpshooter.
Yeah, let's do it. That sounds great. You want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. So within segment one, I call it the hidden skill. So it's about how biathlon's not just endurance, it's also about precision. It's the transition between the two. We were talking about context switching earlier. So anyone can push hard, anyone can aim carefully, but very few can switch between the states on demand. That's the skill set that we are targeting right now within the second segment. It's the ability to switch where most mistakes happen, but the skill is that you don't make mistakes while switching.
Hmm. Absolutely. I think it's an important, really important skill. Like it just is. Um, I don't even know how to describe it, but I think transitions can be challenging at times, right? And that makes sense. But just knowing that you have the ability to kind of engage in whatever is in front of you, right? Again,
Mm-hmm.
pushing hard, aiming carefully, whatever. I think those are the words that you used. We can do those things, but we have to know when to do that,
Yeah.
right? When is it time to let our heart rate settle? When is it time to kind of push again and get our heart rate back up, right? Like we have to know, identify, be aware of those moments, and then effectively shift or transition between
Yeah.
those two different states.
Agreed. To me, it sounds a lot like our previous episode or surrounding context switching. It's that ability to manage the cognitive load
Yeah.
and also to manage attention residue. So, knowing how much residue you usually have between the two, so you know how much time you need for that transition. Maybe you just need a walk to go get a coffee. Maybe you need to actually have some like a different, more monotone task to do first, right? Maybe you have to switch in more slowly. So when I
Yeah.
say that, I'm saying as a leader, we don't have a lot of time. So I'm switching from this emergent HR meeting to, maybe. I'm just giving a kind of a blase answer here. So I'm switching from this emergent HR meeting to I need to do a strategy, but I know I need more time to transition. So what do I do? Well, I decide to focus on a pretty plain task. I'm
Mhm.
just filing. I'm just organizing my to do list around. I am just clearing out old emails that I don't need to answer. Maybe I'm doing something super monotone, as I call it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I don't know. I'm like someone who likes to hyper focus, so I get things done like on my list. Just I don't know. Probably other reasons for that, but I feel you. Like there are times though, like it's important to kind of take a step back and I will say I think a tip that I've always kind of and I talk about this with my clients too. It's like what kind of meeting are we having today? You know, are we having a brainstorming meeting? Are we making decisions? Is this high stress, you know, like all of those things. I think being able to just identify that on the front end as a leader and collectively identifying what kind of meeting you're in can be helpful and beneficial in kind of again determining what part, like am I in the endurance or am I in the precision state, and do I need a transition in the middle of the meeting? Like having an idea of that ahead of time I think would be really helpful for leaders. So tip to our listeners, I start every meeting with that. What kind of meeting are we having today? Just so we're all on the same page.
It's a
I think is important.
inlet to the meeting. You know, it's a good introduction. I also think it's really important to preface your meetings with an agenda ahead of them.
Absolutely.
Even if it's just an introduction, like, hey, these are my ultimate goals for this meeting. As a leader, you usually are the one listing the goals. So it's also introducing why you're scheduling a meeting. So you might not have an initial conversation. You might just schedule a meeting. Well,
Mm-hmm.
keeping it descriptive around that meeting that you've scheduled is also important. I never like to go in and just like book here's a calendars and priorities meeting with an employee, because that employee might think, oh, what did I do wrong? Instead, it's, hey, I want to
Yeah.
touch base about this calendar because I saw this, this, and this, like overall good, but I want to see these changes.
Yeah.
Right? So an agenda really is helpful. And then it keeps you on task in a meeting too, after the fact. Sometimes I'll even build my agenda not just as bullet points, but as like paragraphs, or even as like step 1, step 2, and then you do a follow-up meeting if you can't get to like say step 3 or 4.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think agendas can change a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
Like you can go with the flow, but I do like to have those as well. It makes me think just kind of like if you've ever gotten a message like we need to meet today. Like that scares everyone. It scares employees. It scares me. I don't like it. Even though I'm a leader, I still don't like it. So yeah, I'm all about the agendas.
And it helps, again, it just helps with that switch. So it
Yes.
already prepares them. To an extent, that switch you can prepare for in advance. Like you know that this is going to happen. Like in the biathlon, you know you have to switch from cross country skiing to sharpshooting, right? You know you have to switch between those two. And so you already can prepare to be ready to switch in a way.
Absolutely.
Like those last that last mile, that last 100 feet, 100 yards, you're trying to slow down and you're already thinking about the switch. And so that way it's almost like a pre-attention residue. And instead of attention residue where you switch to the next task and you're thinking of the previous one, now you're in the current one and thinking of the next one.
Yeah.
It's helping with that switch.
Well, and I think it's the preparation for the amount of stress that would be effective for you. So if it's cool, I'm going to move us into segment 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is our psychological theory, what we're bringing in. So a simplified version, of course, of the Yerkes-Dodson theory, which is all around performance. And the idea that for all things, there is an optimal level of stress for performance. Now, that might catch people off guard a little bit because usually I think we associate stress with being a bad thing. But what we know about performance is that stress to some effect or to some level is actually helpful with performance, right? So the idea is that too little stress doesn't offer us enough energy to be able to actively participate or perform, and too much stress gives us reduced precision. So when we really look at that, if we are highly activated like we would be, or high stress like you might be during cross country skiing and biathlon, that's super helpful for speed and execution and drive and just kind of the movement, right? The 180 beats per minute idea, right? But it's not helping you when you're highly activated. It's not helping you with all those kind of nuanced pieces that are at play. Or if we, again, connect that to biathlon, it's not helping you shoot and meet the target at 50 meters away, right? So while skiing benefits from high activation. Shooting requires more of a controlled and less stress.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just put you on the spot, Morgan. Like when you think about, I'm explaining it like from a biathlon perspective, but from leadership, where do you see this coming into play?
Yeah. I see it coming into play in a sense of, you have let's say you have an HR emergency again. You have to have a conversation with this employee ASAP. But before you do, you need to have what does this employee need to hear and learn from this? And what are the next steps to make sure that this employee is like successful? So for example, corrective action. We know I came from the HR world. I always will default to it, even if I'm not working in HR currently. So
Right.
in the HR world, I have a corrective action. It's an immediate need. So trying to think of one that might exist, like for example, theft. Let's say theft.
Mm-hmm.
There's theft in the workplace. Okay, we immediately need to take action here. But legally, compliance wise, what do I need? I need proof. So video cameras, I need to be able to show what they've taken. I might need witness evidence so that judgment comes in. So
Yeah.
I need the urgency to start. And so I need that high stress to start and know that this is taking over all my priorities.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to still, after getting into that level of urgency, take a step back to make sure that my judgment is sound before I have a conversation with this employee. Usually, theft equals immediate termination.
Right.
As well. So you have to think, what are the repercussions of this? And then do I have all my ducks in a row proof wise? And then do I have all my documentation? So you need to have those nuances and you need to have the long-term thinking of, okay, well, if this person files for unemployment, do I have all the proper forms and proof that shows that they shouldn't have been able to get unemployment because they broke company policy and actually broke the law because they stole from the company? So that's an example.
Yeah. Well, and if it's cool, I jump in there. I think what to your point in that example, right? Agreed. I mean, if somebody's stealing, I would not have them work for me anymore. But I also think there's that kind of liability perspective on the leader or the HR teams kind of front, where you want to be more precise about what you're saying in that meeting when you are terminating them, right? Like there's a liability perspective there. And so if you're really high intensity, will you say something that will actually harm you or the company later on? And so I think finding a place where you can have that precision is really important. So I think that's a great example. Yes, theft, but also just like anytime you terminate, or move positions or demote or whatever it may be, like though precision is really important during those times.
Mm-hmm. So it's so funny because all in all, when it comes to like the biathlon, you have the skiing, which equals the scaling, the launching, the competing, the high intensity work of a company, but the shooting portion of it is all about hiring, firing, strategy, cultural setting. That precision really matters. All in all, the two work hand in hand with one another. And so, like we talked about before, that segment one, that ability to switch between the two is where the skill set really shines through in a leader.
I agree. You have to have both, right? I mean, again, stress is not always a bad thing. I think we have to start rethinking like what stress is. It can be helpful, getting us into a flow state. It wouldn't, I mean, realistically, it wouldn't be a biathlon if there weren't two parts to the event, right? So we need both in a biathlon, but we also need it in leadership.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I do like to put it this way, is there's such thing as eustress, the good stress. There's distress and eustress. So the term stress actually has a good and a bad version of
Yep.
it. And oftentimes when I'm even talking to team members about growth and development, I talk about how team members naturally need challenges, and those challenges build eustress. That is where we compete. That is where we're at high volume, but at the same time, we have to take that step back and ensure there's precision within the goal steps to get the ultimate achievement.
Right. No, I get
Right.
that.
Well, I feel like that takes us into segment 3.
Yeah.
It's about how stress narrows thinking. So under pressure, the brain does simplify. It moves towards binary thinking, towards fast closure, action bias. So lots of biases fall in, and overall short-term relief. So
Yeah.
while that is great for when we're moving fast and forward and quick thoughts, it's not as useful when we are trying to grow, trying to develop, trying to improve.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an idea of moving forward versus growth.
Right. Right. I mean, again, to your point, stress is helpful in certain times. If you're in a dangerous situation and you need to get away, right? Like, yeah, go. Action's important. But when you are focusing so highly on that, again, the fast closure, the short term relief, as you put it, you really are, you, as a leader, you kind of limit the creative potential of the people around you, or kind of, I mean, even have an impact on the relationships, right? Maybe you are kind of, you know, over correcting people too much or micromanaging them,
Or overcorrecting yourself.
or yourself. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think it impacts the relationships with the people around you. If, you know, there are times where we need to slow down. There are times where we have to do something that doesn't feel natural. You know, that we want to go fast, we want to get everything figured out. And yet, what is really needed in that moment
Yeah,
is,
and
is slow it
to
down.
me, oftentimes I write this as like the comprehension side of things
Yeah.
of, okay, I'm moving fast. I know exactly what I need to do. I know exactly the steps that need to get done. But when I'm teaching someone else or when I'm directing someone else, are they going to comprehend it in the way that I think about it of,
Right.
oh, it's an urgent thing, but I know it's positive, or are they going to see it as a, oh, it's urgent, so it must be negative. So
Right.
that's sometimes
Right.
what I write. Also, there are times, no matter where you work in business, you're kind of working with customers. A different part of
Mhm.
the company could be your customer, or you could have an actual customer external to the company, or even
Right.
the vendor is kind of the stakeholder. Maybe I should use the term stakeholder instead.
Mhm.
But there's times that I really just want to like I could even get an email from a customer because I'm interim sales manager right now, so I get an email from a customer about another sales rep, and immediately my thought is what? And like either is the customer wrong or is the sales rep wrong about the situation, right? But then I have to take a step back and I have to think how I would respond to both of them, and it might seem somewhat dissimilar the way I respond to them, but both manners I'm building buy-in from
Absolutely.
both sides. So like if I want the sales rep and the customer to still be able to work together, for example, the way I explain it's probably going to be a little different between the two.
Mhm.
Even sometimes getting a customer complaint, I might look at it and give the like the what face. I don't understand. Kind of shake my head, but I'm not going to ever respond to a customer in that way. We are here to serve them and serve them as best we can. So I have to take a step back, and I
Yeah.
need to find a more creative way to give my opinion or to respond to it.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and taking that time to, again, slow down, right? And not want to just kind of go right away. Like, let's get this made. Um, which kind of, I think, brings us into segment 4, which is more about the fact that leaders tend to stay in sprint mode, right? Or like the endurance, the skiing portion of the biathlon, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I know a lot of leaders, myself included, sometimes I'm definitely guilty of this, of having like back to back meetings, not giving myself time to breathe, right? Or, just kind of having this feeling of there's like everything is urgent all the time. Like, I need to do this, I need to get this done, I need to do this, I need to do that. And when you don't give yourself time to breathe, when you don't give yourself time to reset, right? And at the same time are making really high impact decisions, that can be really problematic, right? And I think that's where most of those leadership, I don't like love the word, but most of the failures of a leader come in because you're making high impact decisions during a time when your stress is so high, right? And you're
Yeah,
not giving yourself time.
I tend to say ineffective leaders. Yes, you're right
Yeah.
in using that term. I think, how not to fail as a leader is kind of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
But you're just being more ineffective. You're being ineffective as compared to what you could be. You could be a much more efficient and effective leader. And that does not mean efficiency in the sense of getting all the tasks done as quickly as you can. That's
No.
the irony of this situation is the faster, like the more pressure you have, the faster you want to move. But a lot of times you have to slow down because going to move faster than those around you naturally, especially those under you. That's why you're the leader, right?
Right.
And so it's really important that you practice micropauses, as the biathlons do, is pre-shot rituals, so pre-meeting rituals, controlled breathing. This actually does work, and I do think this applies to leaders in real life, is controlling your breathing, just taking a breath. I actually had a bracelet for a long time that said, just breathe.
Yeah.
Because it would remind me, like, just take a breath. And then it's not rocket science also. I tend to say that a lot. It's not rocket science. So I'm not like, I'm not curing brain cancer with what I'm doing at the company, right?
Sure.
I'm not doing brain surgery right now. Yes, brain surgeons might have a different view because they are doing brain surgery, but you're not doing rocket science. You can take a breath and you can know, okay, what I'm doing, if there's a small change or small inefficiency, it's not the biggest of deals, because you can always go back in and adjust the process again.
Absolutely. Yeah. This sounds crazy, but I have like an Apple Watch and it will tell me to breathe. So there are, I think, keep that in mind too. If you're someone who wears a smartwatch of any kind, like there are apps that will tell you to breathe because it like recognizes your heart rate is, elevated. But I love sports psychology, just so you know. So we could do like an entire episode or entire season on sports psychology, and I would be super duper happy about that. But I just think it's really interesting because we know that athletes in general, they practice these things, right? They practice being in a flow state. They practice the mindset part of it, the breathing, like we're talking about, which is very important as someone participating in a biathlon. But it's so important for leaders. And I just don't think leaders do it very often. We don't take the time. We don't take the time to focus on ourselves and how we can, again, kind of transition between different states more effectively. In the last probably 5 years, have seen a number of people, leaders, putting focus time or something on their calendar so they have those moments. And I think that's really important. Or scheduling a 50-minute meeting instead of a 60, I think that even that is really effective, both for you as the leader, but also for the people you're working with. Give people a break to breathe and transition.
And I would argue,
it's really important.
I'd argue, believe in the 15-minute mantra. Try to make meetings 15 minutes if you can.
Yeah.
Or more like touch base at that point. And a lot of times your meetings are touch bases. So make it 15 minutes. I do that a lot.
That's the thing. If you know what you're going, this goes back to what we were talking about in the other segments. Like if you have an agenda or you know what the goal of the meeting is, theoretically, you should be able to get that done a lot more quickly, right? I think meetings tend to last longer when we don't really have a clear idea about what we're doing or why we're there.
Agreed, because then you're trying to catch up with the meeting
while
having the meeting, while also trying to reflect on the meeting all at once. It's not going to work. I do feel that we've just naturally talked about segment 5 herein, which is the practical reset framework. It's before making a major decision, asking yourself, am I still physiologically activated or psychologically activated? Does this decision require speed or accuracy? Have I deliberately slowed down? And then some reset tools. We talked about it. Extend your breath. Take a breath. So extend your exhale. 4 in, 6 out. As an example. Take a short walk. Go get yourself coffee, as I say. Sleep on decisions that shape people or strategy. Separate crisis meetings from strategy meetings. So, we've talked about all of these throughout the time. But my biggest way to reset myself, which honestly I noticed I did it a lot today. That employee might have been onto something when she asked if I was okay. I think I walked into the break room at least 5 times within 4 hours because I was resetting myself. I filled my water, I got a coffee, went to the bathroom. Each time was between 2 tasks.
Yeah.
I naturally do it, and I'm not even noticing until this meeting right now.
I do the same thing. I have to give myself a couple of minutes just in between what I'm doing. Like I have a team coaching session this afternoon. I'm going to take about 20 minutes to just kind of reset, get in that mindset, because it's important. Like, I need to be there for my client in the best possible way. And in order to do that, I need to breathe and, focus on that precision, because that's what I'm there to do. Right. So,
Yeah. Well, all in all, to close with this metaphor, is biathlon medals aren't won by the fastest skiers. They're won by the athletes who can recover the fastest. In fact, if you have issues with your shooting, you're going to get penalties on your time. Leadership is the same, though. Intensity builds momentum, but the precision builds your legacy. And so, where do you want to see yourself as a leader? If you want to see yourself improve, you want to see yourself be more successful or more effective, as I tend to say, then you need to look at where you have to attach accuracy versus speed and know how to reset between that switch. That switch is your skill that you need to learn.
absolutely. Yeah. So, closing it out, I think the biggest thing is, where in your leadership, your day-to-day leadership, are you still skiing when you should be aiming? Right. And kind of taking a look at those things.
And are you aiming where you should be skiing? I do challenge
Ooh,
that,
good one.
because I do see a lot of leaders focusing too much time
Mm-hmm.
on things that need speed.
Right. Right.
So, I think of when I'm waiting for projects from team members, it's because they're too busy mulling it over still, when all
Right.
they have to do is just get the task done.
Yeah, absolutely. That decision paralysis. That's what I like to call it.
Analysis
Um,
paralysis. This whole
Analysis paralysis. It's one of my, I talk about that a lot. But that's, yeah. This is a really great episode. I really enjoyed kind of talking about biathlon, and who knows, maybe figure skating or hockey or something else is next. So
Yeah, we'll
we'll
see.
see. But with that, listeners, this concludes another intriguing episode of Organizational Sherlocks. I'm Elizabeth Fleming.
And I'm Morgan Ashworth, reminding you that the journey to success is an ongoing investigation.
Stay curious, stay strategic, and keep utilizing insights to decode your business mysteries.
Join us every Friday for your next Whodunit. This is Organizational Sherlocks, closing today's case.
We'll see you all next time.